Havana! 2 weeks ago, or actually 3 weeks ago, when we were in Washington with our show, we were trying to buy some Cuban cigars in a shop close to White House. Nobody knows why. When we asked this question, a salesman said, "Come on, Cuban cigars are prohibited in the United States. There are sanctions." And there's a good reason for this. Havana Syndrome is not related to cigars anyhow, but is related to the weapon technologies that are being used against US diplomats. We talked about this on our show a couple of days ago. We will talk about it today with another guest and friend of our program, Rawlings. But that is the thing that we are going to discuss in a couple of seconds. We know that this kind of things are happening all around the world, not only in Havana, but we know one more thing that was revealed actually today in the morning. According to Intelligence Online outlet, the one that I have on my mobile in front of me, and that's a quote, Poland's NIL unit providing Kyiv intelligence with drones and training. The outlet that we are talking about is widely recognized as a way that French state tries to reveal information that are important for French intelligence community. Those informations are, of course, not classified. Those are unclassified information. And we read in the paper, and this is the information that wasn't published ever in Poland, my home country, that Warsaw is mobilizing a specialist intelligence unit to train Ukrainian artillery reconnaissance teams on freshly delivered drones made in Poland. Torn between public opinion that is increasingly hostile to Ukraine and the threat posed by Moscow on its eastern border, Warsaw has been discreetly supplying drones and training to Ukrainian artillery reconnaissance teams since the beginning of March. The Polish Special Forces Unit, NIL, which specializes in intelligence gathering and targeting, is in charge of these discreet deliveries in southern Poland. This is a breaking information. This is a piece of information that no one actually was speaking loudly in Poland before, and definitely it is something that tells us a lot about the security situation on NATO eastern flank, and based on the place where it was revealed, France is a state. The president of France claimed 2 and 3 weeks ago that France should be present and NATO states should be present in Ukraine, tells us also a lot about the internal pressure and internal debate about what should European NATO states do about Russian aggression against Ukraine. You can join us on rachon.com. Here you'll find a report on this particular subject. If you leave us your email, we'll get back to you with this report, as with other reports on the front lines and the information about the ongoing war against the West. That's what we are going to talk about on my show. My name is Rachoń. This is Rachon. And we roll it.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go!
And tonight, to talk about Havana Syndrome, and not only about this, is our great friend of our show, soldier, author of the books, expert, entrepreneur, people and men with so many professions that it's really hard to tell which is the fundamental one. Rip Rawlings. Rip, great to see you again on our program. Rip, you've been dealing with this issue, you've been writing about it, so could you tell us what is actually Havana Syndrome?
Yeah, it's not to be confused with Helsinki syndrome, right? So we've got a couple of different things that are based on kind of the locations in which they occurred. But Oddly, I have a personal connection to this. We in the Marine Corps started to develop a new weapon system back in about 2006, 2007, and it was new to the Marine Corps. And this is not classified in any manner. I've checked that because while I was active duty, we had this new program that came out, and they said it's a new weapon system. It was classified at the time, and it's called the MRAD, M-R-A-D. And we didn't have any idea what it was. I was a reconnaissance guy, so any high-tech stuff I was always a little bit wary of. But this thing came out, and they said it's a new sonic weapon system that uses focused sonic capabilities, sonic waves, that are focused directly on an individual. You can't hear it to the lateral sides of this speaker system. And it's, just like all directed energy weapon systems. This thing, when you pointed it at somebody, gave such a blast of sound that your head started to lose its own orientation. And you would literally, as they said, piss yourself, get completely confused, usually fall on the floor without any ability to do anything. You couldn't communicate, you couldn't do anything. You basically just lost.
With the sound, only with the sound, with the beam of sound?
Yeah. This one was just sound. Now, what we're talking about in Havana Syndrome includes a lot of different spectrum of directed energy weapon systems. Sound, we believe, is one of them, but we also believe that they're using microwaves and others. But let me explain the one that we're familiar with. It came out, they said, okay, this is going to be this new system. It was declassified, and they said, hey, we're going to start using these. We're going to issue them to you. They come in these things that are basically like a flat panel television that you put up on a mount. It's about the equivalent of a small television. And you can focus this thing directly on one or two, or kind of widen the beam, if you will, a little bit. Within 4 months, it became classified again. And they said, do not talk about this. Yeah, it was one of these things that only the service can do this. And we thought, oh my God, we were going to get one issued to us, or several. They were going to be on board ships to help, keep people at bay. Generally, these, in places where you have pirates, you wanted to be able to use these things to zap them. And immediately they said, stop talking about it. It doesn't exist. Don't worry about it. We said, okay, whatever. If it's classified, it's classified. So fast forward a couple years later, and I'm in Guantanamo Bay. All right, I was in Cuba. And we start to get briefings, again, on the unclassified side, about directed energy weapons coming from Cuba. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of Havana Syndrome. As you know, this has been going on for some time. This is not a new thing. This is something that we know that they've tried in small amounts before. But we all got briefed on it, and we're told it is a directed energy weapon system very similar to the MRAD. Now, that became declassified, as did our program. I think by that time, the cat was out of the bag. So everybody was talking about it, and they said, well, we can't stop it. And now if you Google MRAD, you will find a battery of data about it, because it's no longer a classified system. Now, this is not anything new either. You can go back to World War II, and the Germans practiced using directed energy weapon systems, mainly acoustic at the time. But what we know that the Soviets tried was microwaves. In fact, one of the reasons that all of our embassies almost worldwide have these small kind of mesh metal screens on all the windows is to prevent these directed energy weapon systems. Now, we've learned a lot since then. It's not simply, I have a weapon, I aim this simple MRAD at you, and acoustically you're hit with this thing. Now we're talking about focused beams of other types of electric communications, okay, or electric capability. Microwave is kind of the easiest to describe, but there are other waves that they've been using. And the Soviets and now the Russians have become very adept at using some of these, including at one point putting inside a giant gift that they gave to the U.S. Embassy in Russia. They gave a gift of this, the kind of federal eagle with a globe on it. It was a nice symbol. They gave it to the ambassador, and it had a small metal disc in it. And they zapped the disc from 2 different angles, and they could listen in on what was happening through other types of technology that includes directed energy weapons. So it's not just one item, it's several. In this case, this thing had no other real elements to it besides the filament, which was kind of like an antenna, and this dish, which we now know can not only collect sound, but can also beam sound onto people and cause, as I mentioned, headaches, everything from breaking
What is the effectiveness? Because it's really very hard to imagine. We probably, most of our viewers who are interested in this kind of things, saw the 60 Minutes report, the interview with FBI operator, and she revealed some information about the way she was treated with this weapon. Is that really that effective, that you can be basically disabled in a way, also in the long term, only by directing this kind of energy beam towards you?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it is effective. We know it's effective. The odd thing to me is that the federal government for a long time, and again, not speaking from anything classified here, but the federal government has denied that the Havana Syndrome really exists. They've said, no, this isn't something that occurs. You know, it's possibly something in the water. Maybe they ate something bad. You know, maybe they're faking it, has kind of come out a bunch of times. But we do know that they exist. We know that we have capabilities, as I mentioned, like the MRAD and others that are similar to it. So I suspect, and again, this is just my own speculation, not anything untoward here, but I suspect that we have capabilities that are very similar to this, and we don't want to reveal or tip our hand. Also, they've seemed to be used only in kind of a revenge means, or in a way to kind of cripple or disable some of our own capability in different locations. What I mean by that is, in the 60 Minutes interview, they talked to this poor woman who was a family member of somebody that was, obviously actively deployed into a zone where, she was at risk. And also what's kind of odd is that generally speaking, it's been used against people that have done something or said something against, the Russian regime in general. Embarrassed Putin, embarrassed someone in his inner circle, or made life difficult for them in some way or shape or form. It has been used mainly against family members too. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not trying to use it against people in embassies, but generally the embassies have some security, as I mentioned, these mesh screens and other things. So the family members become particularly vulnerable because they, with a little bit of collection, basic espionage work, when the family member is going to be home, when they're going to be doing the dishes in front of the window. In this case, I think she said she was doing the laundry. And so she was in a predictable location at a predictable time and day. Oddly, though, and I'm not sure this part, may not be something that was just kind of a fluke, but she runs into this guy who's outside, who she gets part of a, picture of, and it turns out to be kind of this very junior Russian agent. They collect some signals intelligence that maybe there was someone talking who says, is it supposed to be blinking green, et cetera. That's so Bush League, I can't imagine that was actually the agent that was doing it. Maybe a support guy who's stupid, who's on the sidelines, who's supposed to plug it in, or who knows what. But the actual agents in charge and the ones that would be doing this and using this device are not going to be the most junior people, especially when they're very closely held state-guarded secrets, like we believe some of their directed energy weapons are. So, yeah, I believe these people. I have talked to people who knew people, so this kind of second order of magnitude, not first order, so not by firsthand, but I have spoken to people who knew people in embassies who were struck by Havana-like syndromes while they were working in the embassies. And this is typically inner ear aches, usually a lot of kind of discombobulation, meaning they lose the ability, they lose kind of some of their motor function, and they're not sure which way is up, left, and right. So I think that's kind of one of the hallmarks that we've seen is people kind of losing some of their balance, as well as some inner ear problems, et cetera. Now, those two are connected, so you can see why that might be acoustic, is because even volumes of sound that we can't hear, dog whistle type stuff, that sound, we know that it still affect the tympanic membrane and the inner ear, and that's what causes balance. So those are the ones we focus on the most. The microwaves themselves, if collected on the brain, can cause brain distortion and could cause basically your brain to cook. And that kind of thing to me seems the scariest because that's permanent damage. Not saying tympanic membrane's not, but that's a little more insidious in my mind.
What does it tell you about because we call it Havana Syndrome, right. But from the journalistic work that was done by both 60 Minutes and Insider journalistic crew, it's obvious that this kind of activity wasn't only activity in one single location. It was not Havana only. What does it tell you about the broader sense and the means that are used? What is the goal of conducting this kind of, I assume, operation? Because if we have different locations of a similar things, it means that there is like some kind of pattern, there is some kind of plan. What do you make of it?
So what I make of it is that this is being used in very small amounts. It's not being used kind of en masse. It sounds to me, obviously, that it's very portable, very much like the MRED system was. It's a small device that requires a battery. So it's portable. You can take it, put it in an apartment across the street, perhaps put it in a vehicle of some kind, plug it into the cigarette lighter kind of thing. So it doesn't require a tremendous amount of energy. But that they're using it only in small amounts in certain locations. And as I mentioned, it seems so far that they're being used mainly in kind of these revenge type attacks, which to me is very unusual. Russia usually attacks in order to gain something, not generally in order to take people out. That seems more of a China modus operandi, and not necessarily Russia. Russia always looks for a political upper hand, a military upper hand, some way to kind of defeat the enemy without having to move a chess piece on the battlefield. So I don't know. I worry a little bit about China getting a hold of this type of technology in greater amounts and using it to kind of attack some of its biggest, I would say, detractors worldwide, because China has a lot of people that are expats and broadcast regularly what's happening kind of behind the bamboo curtain, as they call it, over there in the CCP. So, yeah, I worry that we'll see it in broader use. I'm not sure if it's only used in small amounts because it's a very closely guarded state secret in Russia. But I would suspect it's been one of these things that it's difficult to move with. It's concealable, but not necessarily something you're going to travel in a piece of luggage with that authorities are not going to say, hey, what the heck is this thing sitting inside your carry-on? I mean, all of us have gone through with 3 ounces of shampoo or 3.5 ounces and had TSA stop us. You can imagine what they would say if they see this directed energy weapon system sitting inside a bag. So yeah, it's small amounts where they know they can smuggle it in and they can use it. And typically we've seen it against as a revenge attack of some kind.
Rip, we didn't talk about it in advance, but today, in the morning of European time, French outlet dealing with the worldwide intelligence unclassified information revealed a cable or information that one of the units of a special forces of my home country of Poland, it was revealed by the French intelligence online, were cooperating with the Ukrainian military intelligence on with the boots on the ground, basically in the early stages of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, providing Ukrainian troops with the training, providing with some kind of intel and some kind of drone advisory. What does it mean for a military man that this kind of information was revealed? We also read in this intelligence online report that this is a kind of support to the volunteers corps that are present in Ukraine. You visited Ukraine in the first days of war. You know the reality. What do you make of this kind of information?
The first thing is, I hate to say this because I know some will oppose this, but I'm very gratified to see this is happening. The CIA was revealed fairly recently to have been doing something similar to this, and I hate to say it, but kind of where America goes, a lot of other countries, are already in support or are doing support together, in a friendship environment. They're working or co-located together to make these kinds of things happen. So I'm very heartened to see this because we do need people on the ground training Ukrainians in some of the most advanced and most recent technologies, and also in some of the classified stuff that we just don't reveal or see on a regular basis in the regular media. So the fact that the French have kind of revealed that Poland is in there is not a surprise to us. I think the details that they provided was a little bit more than I would like to see in the public eye. These are the things that we all know are happening. We all hope are happening. And certainly, as we find out from time to time, it's revealed, yes, it is. We do have boots on the ground. The CIA, like I said, was outed within the past 6 months. Now France is outing that, we do have Polish special forces. This is a good thing. Now, what it signals to us, to answer your question, is that this is a no-lose war. And if you're Poland, as the prime minister said very recently, this is on our front doorstep. For those, down in Germany, they're thinking, well, it's not a big deal. We've got Poland as a buffer. If you're as far away as France or Spain, you're thinking, not on my turf. I don't need to worry about it. And this is the NATO conundrum that we constantly talk about over in NATO headquarters and over here in the Pentagon as well, which is sometimes, especially when it's got a state-on-state violence, Ukraine doesn't look like something that people are really terribly worried about if you're down in Spain. Well, they should be. So, the cooperation that NATO provides to our Ukrainian allies is vital, not necessarily for right now, because they're training troops for tomorrow, but that's where the battles are going to occur. I made a prediction in January. I did it on your show, and I talked to many of my close advocates as well. And I said, I think this summer is going to be particularly brutal. And the reason being, as we mentioned last time on your show, is that this is an election season for the United States. This is a particularly vulnerable time. You don't have to do anything more than look through kind of the annals of history, recent history, and you can see that both China and Russia love to have an election year when they're trying to cause some kind of grief somewhere in the world. Now, this is not that grief doesn't capture what's happening in Ukraine. Obviously, this is full state-on-state war. This is bloodshed of the highest degree. As I've said, many, many moons ago on your show, this to me looks very much like the cauldron of World War II and World War I. And so I think, Poland has woken up to that reality a long time ago because they have very close ties to Ukraine and have been able to absorb all of the data and say, this is very bad. And if Putin is not stopped, where is he going to stop? And at least my thoughts, and I think the thoughts of a lot of other, deep kind of think tank people about what will happen is once Russia gets a taste of victory, if they are to overcome Ukraine, they're not going to stop in any way, shape, or form. We're back to another Cold War, little green men, and then perhaps incursions into Poland or other locations. So we don't want Russia getting a taste of victory. We don't want we don't want Putin still in the hot seat there. We'd like to see him ousted. He is a very dangerous criminal, as are all of his inner associates. And so, yeah, seeing Polish special forces in there and some of the details to me is heartening. It's acknowledgement of stuff that we've talked about and have known for many, many years. So I'm glad to see it. I'm not glad to see some of the detail that France provided. I think that's the effect.
I think because this is also, it's also, of course, a pure speculation, but there is some kind of, let's put it this way, coincidence in the world of people who are analyzing worldwide intelligence data. Intelligence Online is treated as some unofficial channel that French entities try to send message to the world, revealing information that France wants to be revealed. And we got the French president a couple of weeks ago who stated that boots on the ground should be present over there. What is the difference from the standpoint of long-term strategy of this kind of conflict, whether you do have NATO troops on certain war theater or no? Ukraine is not a NATO member state. However, it's closely allied to some. So what's the difference if you do have or do not have troops of NATO state on the territory?
I mean, excellent question as always. I know you get deep into the issues on these. So this is the way that I take this. By at least letting out to the public that there are, NATO boots on the ground, let's put it in those terms, because there are other countries that perhaps have troops on the ground that, have not revealed or hasn't been revealed yet by the media or anybody. And my perception is that there are many, many other countries involved on the ground. Again, no firsthand knowledge, not revealing anything that's not already been speculated upon before. But I will say it's in all of NATO's best interest to do so. So why would it be revealed? Well, I suspect we're going to see more and more of these reveals leading up to our own election. It's not lost on, I think, the world public that, the elections for the world in general, all elections, but ours in particular, are very vulnerable time, because you have a trading of the guidon of the flag from one president, perhaps one type of democracy to another type. In this case, there's a lot of worry that whoever may be elected next may not be as charged up to support Ukraine as has been in the past. That's a really bad thing. So leaking out information is a method of strength. Russia knows that there are boots on the ground from NATO nations. Russia knows that we have a lot of espionage tools and tradecraft that are being operated in the area. Ukraine knows it. Poland knows it. France knows it. The United States knows it. It's just the wider public that doesn't. So the effect of revealing the information is more of kind of a chilling effect out there for would-be allies to Russia that says, hey, look, we're willing to put our own guys in there. So if you're a satellite state that enjoys, a lot of the benefits of being close to Russia, Belarus and others, don't, because we will come at you. with our own little green men. We'll put people inside the nations that oppose you because that's how strongly we feel about success. So I think it's a calculated move. I don't know who leaked it. I don't know how it was leaked, but everybody besides the public know that this is happening right now. So it's more of a surprise to us, and I think more of a political move, if you will, than anything else.
Yeah, we discussed, and you just mentioned it, that the big article that we discussed about a few weeks ago by New York Times showing and portraying the 10 years long cooperation between CIA and Ukrainian military intelligence was a breakthrough, big story, but again, not a surprising story for people who try to follow developments of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And it's worth underlining that this is the tactics and this is the knowledge that was transferred from United States to Ukrainian military intelligence, and through this military intelligence to Ukrainian forces, that was possible to kick out Ruskies out of territory of Ukraine in the first months of war. And it was a lacking puzzle of the story that we actually all expected. Rip, thanks a lot. Thanks again for your knowledge and for your time.
Glad to be on board. I will add one quick thing, which is I just got back from Taiwan. And when it comes to things that are happening kind of over in the Pacific theater, I mean, we all know China and Russia are very closely allied on some things. And I think they're allying even more closely these days, especially for weapons technology. There was a earthquake and tsunami just after I left. So that was interesting. But also, I think it's kind of in the public sphere, we're seeing a trade of technologies going over to Russia. And of course, China has a lot of technology that Russia doesn't. So maybe in the future, we need to talk a bit about some of the happenings in the Pacific, because the rumblings over there, pretty bad as well. So that's also some interesting stuff happening globally. But
so we got a deal. We got a deal. We see each other on one of next episodes. Speaking of China and Taiwan, Rip Rawlings, thanks a lot.
Great to be on board.
Friend of our show, military commander, writer, entrepreneur. Thanks a lot, Rip. We see each other soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. You can join us here on rachon.com. That's our Substack. Yeah, you can find Rip on Substack as well. You can leave us your email. We'll come back to you with the reports as the one that we talked about today, because we made some extracts of the intelligence online information regarding the NIL Polish Special Forces unit that allegedly, according to this French online outlet, was present in some way in Ukraine in the early stages of this conflict, teaching people how to deal with this kind of threats. See you soon. Stay safe. We come back next week, probably on Monday. Ciao.